You might be a witch if your home found you. You might be a witch if your pets that you feel are familiars found you. I got one right here. You also might be a witch if you talk to plants, trees. You put your hands on trees, you put your feet in grass, knowing that nature recalibrates you. You might be a witch if you blow out birthday candles on your birthday cake every year, making a wish. You might be a witch if you use affirmations or music to inform your mindset or your mood. You might be a witch if you pray or meditate. And it's absolutely effing crazy how much witchcraft is embedded in society as these little rituals that no one bats an eye at. But the term witchcraft or the term witch is like side-eyed or scoffed or mocked or feared or punished. And the irony is one of the biggest contenders to witchcraft, Catholicism, Roman Catholicism, is literally the biggest appropriator of witchcraft. Isn't that how it goes, right? But I think about this as a recovering Catholic, and I know a lot of you are recovering Catholics too. It's interesting that the thing that is helping us recover is the thing that they denounce. You know? I keep thinking about how connecting with the moon is we're not gonna cry. Hold on. Connecting with the moon when she's full, any night, but especially when she's full, since 2020, with intentionality since 2020, is what I'll say, has served more than any Sunday Mass I have attended. Practicing moon rituals in ceremony with other practitioners has felt more like what Mass, sermon, or church should feel like than any Mass, church, or sermon I've attended. I went to Catholic school from the age of 7 till I was 22. So my joke is like, oh, they got me fucking good. You know? But they did. They really did. Even young adult friends of mine noticed like how superstitious I was, how fearful I was, fearful, especially paranormal. And that is in part due to Catholicism, but I was afraid of paranormal energy. I have memories of those fears before ever going to actual church. So I think that's just my Scorpio South node and my Scorpio moon. But witchcraft as a healing entity is literally what witchcraft was made for. And I don't think a coven sat around and said, let's call it witchcraft. I actually think it's called a lot of different things in a lot of different regions. And the term witch got such a bad rap, this negative connotation tied to it. Any time a person was practicing outside of whatever the societal norm of government or religion was. So the Crusades is a really like easy example to use here. The Crusades was essentially a mission to spread Catholicism across Europe. That's what they said. But what they were doing was expanding control through indoctrination so that people would become subordinate to a rule. Catholicism's got a lot of rules. I don't know if you know. So many. I thought I was going to hell before I was 19. I was like, I'm going to hell. Just like, no. I actually remember having thoughts like, why continue if I can't scrub the record? Like, what is the point? It didn't make sense to me, you know. um, but the Crusades set out to control, and anyone who resisted was given labels in a way to ostracize them and invoke fear in the villagers around them so that they would conform. One word used was pagan. Like, these are pagans. And that signaled these are the enemy, the pagans. Do you know what the translation of the word pagan is? I'm specifically talking about Ireland right now, but the word pagan is villager. So to use a term of like, oh, this is just a native of this land, and we're going to use that against them. We're going to make that a label that's negative. Because the pagans were naturally cycled with seasons and reliant on nature, especially in rural communities where you had to move in sync with natural cycles and seasons. And any herbal remedies or energy work that was being done was labeled witchcraft. If you move down, even in Italy, southern Italy, they had so many different names for witches. One being strega, Strega. Some of you might know the book Strega Nonna. It's a children's book by Tommy DePaolo, which was released in 1975, I think. Like somewhere in the 70s, I think. And it's a book about, that title literally means grandma witch. And it's a book that sheds light on the light side of witchcraft. Because there is light and shadow to everything. I'm not getting it twisted. Like, there are people that do stuff for not good, and there are people that do stuff to, like, interfere with other people's free will. And that is a universal law that I don't fuck with. But Strega Nonna is a book about Grandma Witch who was able to cast a spell over her pasta and it would generate more pasta. And she had a helper. I think his name was Big Anthony. And he witnessed her do that. But he didn't pay attention to what she did at the end of the spell, which was she blew 3 kisses so that the pasta would stop populating, to like put a stop to the pasta, you know? So he watched her, he like peeped on her, but didn't pay attention to that part. And if you think about that part, she blew 3 kisses to make the pasta stop. Like, okay, this is enough. Kisses are symbolic of love, right? Affection. So even that is like, oh, there is a specific intention here. The intention was to make a set amount of pasta, nothing more than what was needed. So there's like an elimination of greed, and it's closed with love, right? Big Tony didn't see that part. So he went and like told all the villagers or whatever, she's a witch. No one believed him. So then he cast the spell and it worked. But this bozo didn't watch the 3 kisses part. So he basically flooded Strega Nonna's house and the village with pasta. He like flooded. He caused a problem because he was a practitioner who wasn't practicing right, you know? His intention wasn't in the right place. He was just trying to prove a point. So then Strega Nonna, as women do, have to come in and clean up the mess, right? She scolded him, blew 3 kisses, and the pasta stopped. And I love the sentiment of intention here. You see both of them cast the same spell. Not in the same way, because one didn't catch it all, right? And the intention of one was just for nourishment. She was feeding herself and Big Tony. It was like her house helper. I think she was like super old or something. And his intention was not as pure. And then he ended up fucking it up anyway, right? And she came and saved the day. There's a message in there about intention. And intentionality is energy. And you can say whatever you want your intention to be, but your insides are what your intention is. And the universe reads that. You can't dupe the universe. You can't fake that, you know? So Big Anthony in the story kind of got his ass served to him in a way that was kind of like karma. Like, well, you played with something that you were not educated about, and you didn't come with the correct intention. So Stregonona had to come and exert her loving intention to stop. And she could have made a mockery of him. She didn't. And I think about how that word strega is used as a negative. It's a negative word for witch in Italy. And there's other ones like Yanade, and that is more like healer. But there are other terms that are used that like depict this practice or this way of life, this like lifestyle, as evil or not of God. Meanwhile, people who are practicing with light intention recognize that there's God in everything, whatever that means, whatever that means, it's in everything. And that book was banned in Wisconsin and Texas for putting witchcraft in like a positive light. Still to this day. I think, yeah, there was something happened in 2022, I think in Texas about it, but they're still banned in those states today. And it's just fascinating because it's like, well, we are in dire need for people to act with intention that comes from care for nature, care for self, care for community. And we are living in a time where it is very, very, very visible how that is not the priority and forefront for many leaders in the world. And for this to be something that's so, it's just funny how they pick and choose when it's okay and when it's not. It's okay in a movie, but if you roll up to a social event and you're like, if people are like, "What are you?" and you say a witch, it can be considered jarring. But if you were asked, you know, what you practice and you said you're Catholic, it might not be as feather ruffling. Ruffle the feathers. Who fucking cares? I had someone come to the door recently. He was selling something that I wasn't buying. And, oh, should I say this? He was selling something that I wasn't buying. And he asked, "Is safety not a concern for you?" So you know what I said? "I'm good. I'm a witch." And I fucking meant it. And he let out a nervous little laugh and he walked away. And I was like, "Yeah, don't come back here. Leave me alone." Okay, I digress though. It's just fascinating how witchcraft, this thing that's denounced, this thing that gets books banned, this thing that makes people go, "What?" or scoff or mock, or worse, has been such a healing force in my life, and I know many of your lives as well. Energy work is witchcraft. Reiki is witchcraft. Reprogramming your mindset, though it's psychologically supported, right? Therapeutically supported. Witchcraft. Placebo effect, witchcraft. Like all these things that show we can make ourselves better and coming into oneness with nature and oneness with the cycles of the seasons. It's witchcraft. So it's bad? It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And I think about music so much because music informs my self. You know, scientifically, certain songs, the beats per minute and the other music words that I don't know, They induce a reaction to your cells in your body. So when you're like, when a song comes on and you start vibing, but you're like, oh no, I'm not in a place where I can dance, and you get this feeling of like, I have to dance, like, or I'm going to burst. That's actually not hyperbole either. That's your body has a reaction to music. And so when you have that feeling, that is your body actually saying, I need to move. I'm programmed to move to this music. So move me, you know? And music can inform or shift moods just the same way affirmations and positive self-talk, positive reframes in the mind can inform the mind. And by informing the mind, we're essentially building new neural pathways to activate, whereas the old ones will begin to be deactivated. I think I said this in the last episode. There was someone who I follow on YouTube who was talking about, I think it's Andrew Huberman, maybe, unless it was that other guy, that business guy. But he was talking about how the old neural pathways that you have that are like negative self-talk or harmful in nature or unkind to you, if you just don't drive down that highway, the highway will become deactivated. We can't eliminate the neural pathway, but we can build a new one and activate that one and use that one. And even that, technically, isn't that witchcraft? Like reprogramming my mind with words, with music, with frequency, with plant medicine. What? I was thinking today, I'm like, my life changed in 2021 when I sat with ayahuasca in Costa Rica. I basically sat in a ceremony where we performed ritual. I drank a potion. I met the devil and I met God. And if you say those words, doesn't it sound like, what the fuck is she talking about? That's witchcraft. It's all interconnected. And I think I have affinity and affection for the word witchcraft because I want to destigmatize that term. And I see a lot of other people who are openly doing that too. And I think that ownership is beautiful, especially when it's being used to liberate, empower, inspire others, which then allows others to expand and live out loud fully, fuller, more abundantly. So witchcraft or energy work, it's healing. Before there was like mainstream hospitals and doctors and urgent cares, right? A lot of times there was one or two healers, herbalists, stregas, witches, shamans, energy workers in the village, and that's who you would bring yourself or your child or your family to for remedy, whether it was herbal remedy, spells, ritual, prayer. And it's fascinating that still works. For those of you who've sat with plant medicine or any sort of psychedelic, you know that what you experience in that journey allows you to zoom out and see everything big picture, which makes the hard stuff feel smaller and thus more manageable. And it makes the instances of love and truth more, like, weighted more. They're worth more. Simple things are worth more when you come out of plant medicine experiences. I always loved nature growing up, and then I lost sight of that, right? Trauma and conditioning and society. But one trip with acid, and I said out loud to the person I was with, I was like, these bushes were made for me. And I don't mean me like Jessica, Marie, Elizabeth, Basilico, but I mean me like all of us. Nature was made for us, not for us to use and abuse, literally to heal. It like brings us back home, brings us back to the remembrance of, oh, I am this thing. I am nature. And I'm out here on my friggin' pocket computer with like my earbuds in and my driving computer, so disconnected from the thing that I am. Anyway, you also are likely a witch if you listen to me. My question for you is, what instances have you experienced with energy work, healing work, spiritual work, witchcraft, psychedelic experiences, where something was once one way, and then after your experience, it was something else? Drop that in the comments below. Thank you so much for all of your emails after last week's episode. Your stories are moving and your support is beyond loving. And your comments under that episode filled a piece of my heart that I wasn't expecting that. So thank you so much. My mission was, girl, you got to just get this out, or you're going to get sick, you know? So thank you for allowing me and for witnessing me and for supporting me. With today's topic, witchcraft, I want to talk about this more. I think a lot of us as kids liked being a witch or pretended to be a witch, and then it didn't seem realistic or feasible to consider yourself a witch as an adult because did you know any? You know? And I have felt so liberated and home in that label. It's just a label though, but I feel home again. And like witchcraft, energy work, connection to nature makes much more sense than a lot of what society's structures tell us makes sense. Like going to a restaurant every weekend makes sense. Okay, I could do that. I could do that once in a while. Going out in nature every weekend, that makes sense to me. Being like in overpopulated spaces every weekend because it's fun while drinking alcohol, that used to be something I did. It still didn't make sense then though, because it was hurting me, you know? Witchcraft just makes so much more sense. Energy work makes so much more sense. Nature makes so much more sense than a lot of the bullshit we're fed. So, with that in mind, are you a witch? I feel like you are. Tell me the before and after of any sort of witchcraft experience that helped heal or helped expand. And remember, this is for me too, if it can help heal, then it can also help inform the rest of your life. We don't have to just use energy work in healing modalities. You can use energy work for changing lifestyle, changing homes, changing jobs, you know, manifestation. It's witchcraft, babe. It's witchcraft. But with that in mind, you can be even more intentional about it with candles, with colors, with crystals. Not that those things hold the magic, but those things are symbols, and your subconscious speaks symbol, according to Dr. Carl Jung. And when we learn to speak the hieroglyphics of the subconscious, you become fucking limitless. And if you input the right symbols into the subconscious, it starts to believe the symbols you are telling it. So if you want to become a millionaire so effing bad, Bruno Mars, shout out, feed it the symbols that tell it it's a millionaire. And that subconscious will then scan and look for avenues to become that. I'm using that example because it's a very easy example. I'm not saying that we need that. I'm not saying we should covet that. I also wouldn't say no to it though. If that knocked on my door, I wouldn't say no. I'd say, thank you so much. This is so very helpful. And now I can be healthier. And now I can help others more. All right, High Priestess. Thank you for sharing your stories in advance. If you have a story that you want to send via email, you can do that as well. I'm sending you so much love. You are the High Priestess, and I'll talk to you later.